The morning in Willow Creek was like any other, crisp, quiet, and drenched in golden sunlight filtering through the towering pines. The town, a place where time seemed to move a little slower, had long been home to Nora Carter and her 3-year-old son, Liam. Life here was simple, predictable. A place where neighbors exchanged friendly nods on their way to the local diner, and where nothing truly unexpected ever happened. For Nora, predictability was a comfort. As a single mother, life had thrown enough curveballs her way, and raising a child who never spoke a single word was already a journey filled with unknowns. Every day was a delicate balance of patience and understanding, trying to navigate a world that often didn't make room for children like Liam, children who saw the world in ways no one else did. But if there was one thing she knew about her son, it was this: he was happiest in nature. That's why every morning, rain or shine, she took him on their routine walk through Willow Trail, a narrow dirt path that wound through the outskirts of town and into the forest. It was here, beneath the whispering trees and among the rustling leaves, that Liam seemed most at peace. He never asked for toys or television, never tugged at her sleeve, demanding attention. Instead, he watched. The way light danced on the dewdrops, the way a squirrel twitched its tail before scampering up a tree. His bright blue eyes soaked in every detail, telling stories in silence that only he understood. This morning was no different. At least, that's what Nora thought. They walked side by side, Liam's small hand nestled in hers. He never pulled or resisted, never rushed ahead like most toddlers might. Instead, he moved with an unusual sense of purpose, his footsteps light but deliberate, as if every step was a piece of a puzzle only he could see. "Nippy morning, huh, kiddo?" Nora murmured, tucking his jacket closer around him. Liam didn't respond. He never did. But his fingers flexed slightly, a tiny gesture of acknowledgement that she had learned to recognize over time. The trail was quiet, except for the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath their boots. Birds chirped in the distance, greeting the morning in a melody that Nora had grown to love. She took a deep breath, savoring the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Then suddenly Liam stopped. It was so abrupt that Nora nearly kept walking, the momentum pulling her forward before she turned back to face him. He was frozen, his gaze locked onto something beyond the trees. A prickle of unease crawled up Nora's spine. "Liam?" she called softly. No response. His body was rigid, his small chest rising and falling in quick, shallow breaths, but he wasn't afraid. If anything, he looked entranced, as though the world had just shifted beneath his feet, revealing something no one else could see. Then before Nora could react, he ran. Her heart lurched. "Liam, no, wait!" Her voice ripped through the quiet morning, but Liam didn't slow down. He darted off the trail, his little legs carrying him with more speed than she thought possible. Panic surged through her veins. Nora took off after him, adrenaline propelling her forward. The terrain wasn't made for running. Roots twisted beneath her feet, low-hanging branches clawed at her sleeves, but she pushed forward, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What had he seen? What had made him react like that? After what felt like forever, but had likely been only seconds, she burst through a clearing, her breath ragged. And then she saw it. A dog. Not just any dog. A Pitbull, half buried in a patch of thick sucking mud. It was motionless, its lean frame coated in grime, patches of dried blood staining its short gray-blue fur. Even from a distance, Nora could see its ribs protruding, a clear sign that it had gone without food for far too long. It should have been lifeless. It should have been gone. But then, its eyes opened. Deep, dark brown, and filled with something so raw it made Nora's chest ache. Not fear, not aggression, resignation. As if it had given up on the world long before this moment. And yet, when Liam dropped to his knees beside it, something changed. Nora watched, her breath caught in her throat, as her son, her silent, withdrawn son, reached out a tiny hand and placed it gently on the dog's head, a soft, hesitant touch, the kind that spoke louder than words. The dog didn't flinch. It didn't growl or recoil. Instead, its tail twitched, just barely, a weak, broken attempt at a wag. Nora's heart clenched. She had never seen Liam interact with another being like this before. Not with the neighbor's dog, not with other children. Never. And then, as if the world had faded into the background, he did something even more astonishing. He leaned in close and whispered something, too soft for Nora to hear. The dog let out the smallest whimper, its dark eyes locked onto Liam as though it understood something that no one else could. It was barely alive. And yet, at that moment, it found the strength to look up at the little boy and not give up. The silent child and the broken dog. Two souls who had somehow found each other in the most unexpected place. Nora swallowed the lump in her throat, a strange sense of realization settling over her. This wasn't just coincidence. This wasn't just a lost dog. Somehow, some way, Liam had been meant to find him. And for the first time in a long time, Nora didn't feel like she was the only one trying to understand her son's world. Because in that moment, it seemed like someone else already did. The Pitbull, though too weak to move, had found a reason to keep going. And Liam, for the first time, had found his voice without speaking a word. Nora knew without a doubt that they couldn't just walk away, but what she didn't know, not yet, was that this moment, this single decision, would change everything. Because this wasn't just any lost dog, and someone somewhere was looking for him, and they wouldn't stop until they found him. For a long moment, Nora couldn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to pull Liam away, to create distance between her child and the large, wounded dog struggling in the mud. Every parental instinct she had told her this was dangerous. The dog was weak, but still a powerful breed, and no one could predict how an animal in pain might react. But Liam didn't hesitate. Without fear, without a second thought, he reached out, his small, delicate fingers brushing against the dog's head, fingers sinking slightly into the damp, matted fur. "Liam?" Nora started, taking a step forward, ready to grab him, to pull him back. Then she froze. Something was happening. The dog didn't flinch. It didn't growl or snap. Instead, its deep brown eyes, eyes that had been clouded with exhaustion and pain, softened. The tension in its frail body seemed to melt away beneath Liam's touch. A slow, unsteady breath pushed through its nose, and in the weakest but most undeniable movement, its tail twitched. Not much. Just enough to say, "I hear you. I see you." Nora's throat tightened. She had spent years trying to reach her son, trying to break through the quiet walls he built around himself, trying to understand the world as he saw it. And yet, in mere seconds, this dog understood him. She swallowed hard, suddenly feeling like an intruder in a conversation too intimate to interrupt. Liam leaned closer, his face mere inches from the dog's. His lips moved, whispering something so soft, so faint, that even standing right there, Nora couldn't hear it. The dog responded, not with words, but with a look, as if whatever Liam had said meant something, as if it understood. It was impossible, and yet it was happening right in front of her. A silent child and a broken dog speaking in a language that no one else could hear. The rain, which had been threatening in the distance, finally broke through the clouds, sending cold droplets down onto them. Nora snapped back to reality. The dog was still trapped, still injured. Whatever had just happened, whatever unexplainable connection had formed, it didn't change the fact that if they didn't act now, it might be too late. "We can't leave him here," Nora murmured almost to herself. Liam turned to look at her, his expression unreadable but determined. "No," she agreed, her voice stronger now. "We won't." She crouched down beside them, reaching out carefully to touch the dog's side. It was skin and bones, the muscles beneath its fur trembling with cold and exhaustion. It didn't resist her touch, only lay there, its body too weak to fight anymore. "Okay, buddy," she said softly, gently brushing a few strands of wet fur from its eyes. "We're going to get you out." But how? The mud was deep, sucking at anything that dared enter. The dog was large, at least 50 or 60 pounds, and had clearly been stuck here for some time, its strength drained from struggling. Even if Nora could get a solid grip, she wasn't sure she could lift it out on her own. Her mind raced for a solution. Before she could come up with one, Liam moved. Without hesitation, he dug his small hands into the mud, scooping away at the thick, heavy earth surrounding the dog's body. "Liam, wait!" But he was determined, small, fragile, but filled with an unshakable will. His fingers were soon coated in mud, water, and filth, but he didn't care. He worked as if this was the most important thing in the world, as if this dog's survival depended on him. Nora's chest tightened. It wasn't just about the dog. She had never seen Liam interact with anything or anyone like this before. It had always been a struggle to get him to engage, with toys, with other kids, even with her sometimes. But here he was, completely present, completely invested in saving a life that wasn't his own. She had spent years wondering if she would ever see him connect to something. And now here it was, right in front of her. Nora shook herself from her thoughts and got to work. She dug in alongside him, using her hands, her sleeves, anything she could to clear away the mud around the dog's trapped legs. The rain was getting heavier now, drenching them, making everything more slippery, more difficult. "We have to hurry," she muttered, heart pounding as she tried to shift the dog's weight to free one of its legs. Liam didn't stop, didn't pause. His hands moved with purpose, his brows furrowed in concentration, and inch by inch they made progress. Finally, after what felt like forever, the suction of the mud released its grip. The dog's body shifted, and for the first time it whimpered softly. Not in fear, but as if it too understood that freedom was near. "One more push," Nora urged, gripping under the dog's front legs. "Come on, boy." With one final heave, they pulled. The dog slid free, collapsing onto the solid ground with a heavy thud. For a few terrifying seconds, it didn't move. Nora's breath caught. Then, slowly, it opened its eyes. Weak, exhausted, but alive. Liam let out a small sound, something that was neither a word nor a cry, but something filled with relief. The dog turned its head, and despite everything, despite the pain, despite the cold, it wagged its tail. It was small, barely a flicker of movement, but it meant everything. Nora exhaled, her arms trembling with exhaustion. She looked at Liam, his face smudged with mud and rain, his chest rising and falling with fast, uneven breaths. And she knew. This moment was more than just a rescue. It was a beginning of something neither of them could yet understand. But one thing was certain. They weren't leaving this dog behind. And somehow Liam had known that all along. Nora's arms ached as she cradled the injured Pitbull against her chest. The dog was heavier than she expected, its limp body sagging in exhaustion, but it made no attempt to resist. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the scent of damp earth and pine filled the air. Liam walked beside her, silent as always, but his gaze never left the dog. She had never seen him so focused, so invested in something outside of himself. It was as if, in finding this dog, he had found something unspoken, something that belonged to him in a way she couldn't yet understand. "Almost there, buddy," Nora murmured, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to the dog, to Liam, or to herself. The only veterinary clinic in Willow Creek was a modest single-story building with peeling white paint and a faded wooden sign that read, "Harris Veterinary Care." Dr. James Harris had been the town's veterinarian for as long as Nora could remember, a no-nonsense man in his 60s who had seen everything from house pets to livestock. If anyone could help this dog, it was him. Pushing through the glass door with her shoulder, she stepped inside, the warmth of the clinic wrapping around her like a blanket. "Dr. Harris?" she called, shifting the weight of the dog in her arms. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the faint, familiar smell of animals. The waiting room was empty, save for a tabby cat curled up on the counter, lazily flicking its tail. A moment later, a door swung open, and Dr. Harris appeared, wiping his hands on a towel. His gray eyebrows shot up when he saw the mud-caked bundle in Nora's arms. "Well now," he said, setting the towel down. "What do we have here?" "A dog we found in the woods," Nora said quickly, adjusting her grip. "He's hurt. Bad. I think he's been stuck out there for days." Dr. Harris stepped forward, his experienced hands already moving to assess the animal. "Bring him in," he said without hesitation, pushing open the door to the examination room. Nora laid the dog gently on the metal table, and Liam immediately moved to stand beside it, his small hands gripping the edge of the table as he watched. Dr. Harris gave him a brief glance before turning back to the dog. "Looks like you got yourself a good little assistant." Nora let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Yeah, he cares about this one." Dr. Harris nodded, already pulling on a pair of gloves. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The examination was grim. The dog was severely malnourished, its ribs pressing against its thin coat. Signs of dehydration were evident, and when Dr. Harris gently pressed around its wounds, the dog let out a weak whimper, but didn't fight back. "This poor thing has been through hell," he muttered. "The wounds on his legs. Looks like barbed wire. Someone tied him up or he got caught trying to escape from somewhere." Nora felt a chill creep up her spine. Someone had done this to him? "Can you save him?" she asked, her voice tighter than she intended. Dr. Harris didn't answer right away. He grabbed a syringe, drawing a small amount of blood before speaking. "I'll do everything I can. He's weak, but dogs like this, they fight. He's got a chance." Liam reached out and placed a small hand on the dog's paw. The dog barely moved, but its eyes fluttered open, locking onto the boy's face. And then, ever so faintly, its tail twitched. Dr. Harris noticed. "Well, look at that," he murmured. Nora swallowed. "There's something else." She pointed to the mud-covered metal tag hanging loosely around the dog's neck. Dr. Harris leaned in, using a damp cloth to carefully wipe away the dirt. As the metal gleamed under the fluorescent light, a series of engraved letters and numbers came into view. A strange silence settled over the room as Dr. Harris read the inscription aloud. P-009, Research Division, Restricted. The words sent an uneasy shiver through Nora's spine. "What does that mean?" she asked, glancing between the vet and the tag. Dr. Harris frowned, his fingers tracing the engraving with quiet concern. "This isn't a normal identification tag," he said after a pause. "Pets usually have a name, a phone number, maybe a vet clinic's address, but this—" He shook his head. "This looks official. Military or government-related, maybe." Nora's stomach tightened. "You think he belonged to someone?" "Maybe," Dr. Harris said carefully. "Or maybe he wasn't a pet at all." She stared at him. "What do you mean?" Dr. Harris took a deep breath, choosing his words. "There have been stories over the years about dogs trained for specialized purposes. Military, law enforcement, even research facilities that develop working dogs with advanced training. Some of those programs are public knowledge. Others aren't." Nora glanced at Liam. The little boy was still watching the dog, his small fingers gently stroking its fur. He didn't seem to care about the mystery or the possible danger, To him, the dog wasn't an experiment or a secret. It was his friend. Dr. Harris straightened, setting the tag aside. I'll run a full medical scan on him. See if there's a microchip, anything that can tell us where he came from. But if this dog is from a classified program, there may not be one. The thought unsettled Nora more than she wanted to admit. What if this dog wasn't just lost? What if someone was looking for him? She glanced at the small metal tag again, the cold steel glinting under the light. For the first time since she had picked up that dog in the woods, Nora felt a creeping sense of unease. Had she just stumbled into something bigger than she ever imagined? She didn't have an answer. But as she looked at Liam, standing protectively by the dog's side, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't giving him up, no matter what. The morning air was crisp. The sky streaked with pale hues of dawn as Nora pulled into the veterinary clinic's parking lot. Her mind was still tangled with the events of the previous day, finding the injured Pitbull, the strange metal tag, and the unsettling words from Dr. Harris about classified programs. She had barely slept. Even after settling Liam into bed, after making herself a cup of tea and trying to rationalize everything, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. And today, that feeling was about to get worse. As she stepped into the clinic, the scent of antiseptic and fresh hay greeted her. Comforting, familiar. Liam walked beside her, small but alert, his fingers grazing along the edge of the reception desk as if absorbing the room's energy. He didn't say a word, but she could feel it. He sensed something was off, too. Dr. Harris was already in the back tending to the dog who had made it through the night but was still weak. The plan was to discuss next steps, how to care for him, what the strange research division tag could mean, and whether anyone had reported a missing pit bull. But those conversations never got the chance to happen. Because just as Nora reached for the exam room door, the bell above the entrance chimed. She turned, instinctively placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. A man had stepped inside. He wasn't local. She could tell that instantly. There was something too polished, too deliberate about the way he carried himself. He wasn't dressed like a typical dog owner frantically searching for their lost pet. There was no relief in his eyes, no hope, only calculation. "Can I help you?" Dr. Harris's voice carried from the back as he stepped forward, wiping his hands on a towel. His tone was neutral, but his sharp gaze flicked toward Nora, as if already sensing something was off. The man smiled, but it was forced. Practiced. It didn't reach his eyes. "I'm looking for a dog," he said smoothly, slipping a hand into the pocket of his dark coat. "A pit bull, gray-blue coat, possibly injured. Have you seen one?" Nora's heart thudded. He knew. Dr. Harris kept his expression unreadable. "A lot of dogs come through here. You have a missing pet?" The man's smile didn't waver, but his eyes narrowed just slightly, as if testing how much he could push. "You could say that," he replied. "I work with a rescue organization. We track lost and abandoned dogs, especially those that might need special care." There was something in the way he said it that made the hairs on the back of Nora's neck stand up. Dr. Harris didn't blink. "Well, if you're looking for a lost dog, I suggest checking with the town's shelter. That's where most strays end up." The man tilted his head slightly, studying him, before letting out a quiet chuckle. "Of course. But if you do happen to come across a pit bull fitting that description, I'd appreciate a call." He reached into his coat and placed a business card on the counter. No logo, no company name, just a phone number. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The clinic door shut behind him, and for a long moment the room was silent, except for the faint hum of the overhead lights. Nora exhaled slowly, barely realizing she had been holding her breath. "That wasn't a rescue worker," she murmured. Dr. Harris frowned, picking up the business card and flipping it between his fingers. "Number It wasn't. Liam tugged at Nora's sleeve. When she looked down, he wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the window, at the black SUV parked across the street. A wave of cold dread washed over her. It had tinted windows, sleek but unmarked, and it was facing the clinic, idling like it had been there for a while. Dr. Harris followed her gaze and cursed under his breath. "That's not a coincidence." Nora's fingers tightened around Liam's jacket. The man wasn't just asking questions. He was watching. "We need to go," she said under her breath, her pulse quickening. "Now." Dr. Harris nodded, already pulling off his gloves. "I have a friend," he said. "Someone who might know what this is about." Nora turned back to him. Her nerves stretched thin. "Who?" "Dr. Bennett," he said. "Used to be a military veterinarian. Knows more about government contracts and research projects than anyone in this town. If this dog came from somewhere restricted, he'll recognize it." Nora swallowed hard. "Can he help us?" Dr. Harris gave a short nod. "If anyone can, it's him." The SUV hadn't moved. Nora didn't know if the man was still inside, watching them, or if he was making another phone call, sending another warning, but she didn't wait to find out. "Where is he?" she asked, already grabbing her car keys. Dr. Harris scribbled something on a sticky note and handed it to her. "Outside of town. Rural property. He keeps to himself, but tell him I sent you. He won't turn you away." She hesitated. "And what about the dog?" "I'll keep him here for now. Safer than moving him again until we know what we're dealing with." Nora hated the idea of leaving the dog behind, but Liam was her priority. She looked down at him, his small face calm but watchful, his hand still lightly touching her wrist, a silent gesture of reassurance. He felt it too. The shift. The danger. "Come on, buddy," she said, her voice softer now, though the tension still ran beneath it. As she stepped toward the door, she took one last glance at the SUV. It was still there, waiting, watching. And as she drove away with Liam in the back seat, she knew. Whoever these people were, they weren't just looking for a dog. They were looking for something much bigger. And somehow, without meaning to, she had just stepped right into the middle of it. Dr. Bennett's clinic wasn't like Dr. Harris's. It wasn't a small-town veterinary office with a waiting room full of wagging tails and the comforting smell of fresh hay. This place was different. Tucked away deep in the woods, where the only road leading to it was barely more than a dirt path. The building itself looked more like an old research station than a place for treating house pets, with reinforced doors, a security camera mounted on the porch, and thick metal shutters on the windows. Nora hesitated for a moment before stepping out of the car. Liam followed closely behind, gripping the sleeves of her jacket, his wide eyes scanning their surroundings. He was silent, but she could tell he sensed the tension too. Dr. Harris had told her to trust Dr. Bennett, but the moment the man himself stepped out onto the porch, she wasn't so sure. He was in his late 50s, tall and lean, with close-cropped silver hair and an expression that seemed permanently skeptical. His sharp eyes flicked to Liam first, then to Nora, before finally landing on Bruno, who lay wrapped in blankets in the back of the car. "You brought me something interesting," he said, voice rough but not unkind. Nora exhaled. "Dr. Harris said you might know what this dog is, or where he came from." Dr. Bennett studied her for a moment longer, then nodded toward the clinic. "Bring him inside." The exam room was small, but equipped with technology that seemed far beyond what a regular vet would need. Medical scanners, neurological monitoring devices, even a computer system that looked more like something from a government lab than a veterinary clinic. Nora placed Bruno on the examination table, her heart tightening as she watched him. His breathing was still slow, his body weak. But there was a quiet strength in the way he watched Liam, as if even in his fragile state, He was still protecting him. Dr. Bennett didn't ask any more questions. He just got to work. He moved with the efficiency of a man who had seen things most people wouldn't believe, his hands steady as he examined the dog's wounds, measured his vitals, and ran a small handheld scanner over Bruno's body. Then he stopped, frowned, and ran the scanner over Bruno's skull again. Nora's stomach twisted. "What? What is it?" Dr. Bennett straightened, setting the scanner down. "This dog has had neurosurgery." Nora blinked. "Surgery? You mean like an injury?" Dr. Bennett shook his head. This wasn't done to treat an accident. This was deliberate, precise." He pointed at the scanner's display. "There's evidence of implants, small embedded devices near his cerebral cortex. Someone altered this dog's brain." Nora's breath caught. Who would do something like that? Dr. Bennett didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to his computer and inserted Bruno's metal tag into a data reader. Lines of encrypted text flashed across the screen, a series of codes and identifiers that meant nothing to Nora. But they meant something to Dr. Bennett. His expression darkened. Nora stepped closer. "What is it?" Dr. Bennett exhaled sharply. This dog wasn't just part of some random study. He was part of a classified research program, one that was designed to push the boundaries of what dogs are capable of. Liam, who had been sitting quietly, shifted slightly, his small fingers brushing against Bruno's paw. And just like before, Bruno responded. His ears twitched. His body relaxed. And even though he was barely strong enough to move, he let out a slow, relieved breath, like a child finding comfort in their mother's arms. Dr. Bennett watched the exchange with an intensity that made Nora's skin prickle. Then he said the words that changed everything. "He's not just trained to respond to people. He can read them." Nora stilled. "What do you mean?" Dr. Bennett leaned forward. "The project this dog came from, it was about more than just enhancing scent detection or obedience. It was about cognitive augmentation. The goal wasn't just to create a highly intelligent working dog. It was to create an animal that could understand and respond to human emotions on a level never seen before." Nora's head spun. "So you're saying Bruno can sense feelings?" Dr. Bennett's gaze sharpened. "More than that. If the research was successful, if he's one of their finished prototypes, then he can pick up on thoughts, not words, not direct communication, but instincts, emotions, subconscious intent." Nora could barely process what she was hearing. But why? Why would anyone want to do that? Dr. Bennett folded his arms. Imagine a military unit deployed into dangerous territory. A dog that doesn't need verbal commands, that can sense fear, deception, even aggression before it happens. Imagine search and rescue teams with dogs that can locate missing persons not by scent alone, but by picking up on their distress, their presence. That's what they were trying to create. His gaze flickered to Liam. "And that might be why he's connected to your son so deeply." Nora's chest tightened. "Liam doesn't talk," she said quietly. "Not in the way most kids do." Dr. Bennett nodded. "Which means he doesn't rely on verbal communication the way others do. He thinks differently, processes the world differently. And if Bruno is engineered to pick up on thoughts, feelings, non-verbal cues, then he would naturally gravitate towards someone who communicates in the same way." Nora looked down at Liam. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Bruno. The way they watched each other, it was as if they understood something the rest of the world couldn't. A lump formed in her throat. "So you're saying they're bonded because of the way they think?" Dr. Bennett's expression softened. "I'm saying that if this dog was made to understand people on an instinctual level, then Liam might be the first person he's ever met who truly understands him back." Nora exhaled slowly, her fingers brushing against Bruno's fur. Whatever this dog had been before, whatever he was designed for, whoever had once owned him, He was Liam's now, and no one was going to take him away, not without a fight. The night was heavy with silence, too silent. Nora stood near the window of Dr. Bennett's remote clinic, staring out into the darkened woods. The only light came from the dim glow of the porch lantern, casting long shadows across the gravel driveway. Liam sat on the floor beside Bruno, resting his small hand on the dog's back. The bond between them was unshakable now, deeper than anything Nora could explain. But something felt off, a pressure in the air, a quiet, unseen force creeping toward them. Then, a knock at the door, not frantic, not polite, controlled, calculated. Dr. Bennett glanced at Nora, his expression darkening. "They're here." A second knock, firmer this time, then a voice, smooth and professional. "Dr. Bennett, we know you have the dog. Let's not make this difficult." Bruno's ears pricked forward, his body tensing. He knew. Nora's heart pounded. This wasn't a simple lost pet recovery. These men weren't here to ask questions. They were here for Bruno. Dr. Bennett motioned for Liam to stay where he was. "Stay close to your mom, kid," he murmured before unlocking the door, but he didn't open it all the way. A tall man in a black jacket stood just outside, flanked by two others. The SUV from before was parked at the edge of the property, its headlights cutting through the night. The man smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "We don't want trouble, Doctor," he said. "We just need the dog." Dr. Bennett's jaw tightened. "This dog isn't your property." The man raised an eyebrow. "That's not for you to decide." Nora clenched her fists. "Why? What do you want with him?" The man's eyes flicked to her. "That's not your concern." "Actually," Dr. Bennett cut in, stepping forward, "it is. Because I ran the data from Bruno's tag. I know about Project Aegis. I know what you were doing." For the first time, the man's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise quickly concealed. "You have no idea what you're involved in," he said, his voice losing its practiced smoothness. "That dog is a liability. He needs to come with us." Nora's stomach twisted. A liability. They weren't here to help Bruno. They weren't even here to take him back. They were here to erase him. She stepped in front of Liam. "You're not taking him." The man sighed. "Miss Carter, I strongly advise you not to get in the way." One of the other men shifted slightly, hand hovering over his jacket, and Nora's breath caught. Was he carrying a weapon? Bruno's body tensed, his muscles coiled beneath his battered frame, his eyes locked onto the man's movements. Then, Liam spoke. "Bruno." The first word he had ever said. The sound of it froze everyone in place. Bruno's ears perked. His tail gave a slow, deliberate wag. And then, he moved. Not away, not to hide. He stepped forward, standing between Liam and the men at the door. A low, deep growl rumbled from his chest, one that carried warning, fury, and absolute, unwavering loyalty. The men hesitated. They hadn't expected this. Not the bond, not the protectiveness, not the boy speaking. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across their faces. And in that moment, Nora knew. Bruno wasn't just a dog to them. He was an experiment that had exceeded their control. And Liam had just proven why Bruno could never go back. She took a steady breath, then stepped beside Bruno, facing them head-on. "You need to leave," she said, her voice cold, unwavering. The man's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. But then, he took a step back. "This isn't over," he said simply. Then, just as quickly as they came, they turned and walked away. The SUV's engine rumbled to life. Nora didn't move until she saw the taillights disappear into the trees. Only then did she kneel down, pulling Liam into her arms. His small hands clutched her shirt, but his face wasn't scared. It was calm, because Bruno was still there. And somehow, Liam knew he always would be. The taillights of the black SUV disappeared into the night. But Nora knew this wasn't over. The men had left, but not before issuing a final warning. If you keep that dog, be ready for what comes next. The words echoed in her mind, chilling despite the quiet night. She glanced down at Bruno, who sat beside Liam, his body still tense, his ears flicking toward the distant road like he was waiting for something else to happen. But no one else came. After a long, heavy silence, Dr. Bennett exhaled. "They'll be back," he said. "They don't walk away that easily." Nora swallowed. "Then we'll be ready." She didn't know how. She didn't have a plan. But what she did know, with absolute certainty, was that she wasn't giving Bruno up. Not now. Not ever. The following days were quieter. Bruno recovered faster than any normal dog should. His wounds healed, his strength returned, and he moved through the house as if he had always belonged there. And in a way, he had. Liam, once lost in his own world, now spoke more words each day. Simple things at first. Bruno. Come. Stay. Words that held weight because they weren't just words. They were proof. Proof that something had shifted inside him, that something about Bruno had unlocked a door no one else could. Nora watched in quiet awe as Liam curled up beside Bruno at night, whispering things no one else could hear. And Bruno? He always listened. He always understood. A mysterious message. It was late one evening when Nora's phone chimed. She frowned, expecting a text from Dr. Bennett or Dr. Harris, but when she checked, it was an email. No sender, no signature. Just a subject line. P009 is not the only one. You've stepped into something bigger than you realize. A slow chill crept up her spine. She clicked the message open, but there was nothing else. No details, no instructions, just that one cryptic line. She looked over at Bruno, now resting on the couch with Liam beside him. His deep amber eyes met hers, calm but watchful, like he already knew what she had just read. Like he knew there was more to come. A silent understanding. Nora didn't know what the future held. She didn't know who had sent that message or what they meant by "not the only one." But as she watched Liam wrap his arms around Bruno, whispering something soft, something only they understood, she realized. It didn't matter. Bruno was home, and whatever came next, they'd face it together. At its core, this story is about connection, resilience, and the unexpected ways in which we find hope, not just in the people around us, but in the creatures who walk beside us. Bruno was never just a dog. He was a survivor, a being shaped by forces beyond his control. Yet he never lost his instinct to protect, to love, and to trust again. Despite the scars, both seen and unseen, he found his way to Liam, a boy who, in his own way, was just as lost in the world. Two souls, both misunderstood, both searching for something they couldn't put into words, found exactly what they needed in each other. Liam's journey is just as profound. A child who had spent his life locked in silence, not because he didn't want to speak, but because no one had ever truly understood him the way Bruno did. In a world that often demands words as proof of understanding, Bruno offered something else. A quiet, unwavering presence, an instinctive knowing that didn't require speech to be real. This story also raises powerful questions about the ethics of control, power, and the right to freedom. Bruno was created for a purpose he never chose. He was meant to serve, to obey, to be nothing more than a tool. But in the end, he became more than that. He became family. The message is clear. We are not defined by where we come from, but by the choices we make and the love we give. Bruno chose Liam. Liam chose Bruno. And in doing so, they proved that no amount of conditioning, no amount of force can ever break the bonds that are meant to be. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about a boy and a dog. It's a story about finding your voice, fighting for those who matter, and knowing that sometimes the purest connections are the ones that don't need words at all. Share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another amazing story. Together, we can shine a light on the power of doing what's right. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.